During my son's wedding, the bride leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Old man, you're buying us a house or I'm walking out on him." I smiled faintly, pretending to be the proud father, while inside anger churned like fire. When I took the microphone, I decided to expose everything about her. What I said left even the police speechless. Before we go on, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. The car doors closed one after another, driver's side first, then the passenger. From my living room window, I saw Wesley talking animatedly, his hands moving in that familiar way he had since childhood. The woman beside him paused on the driveway, eyes scanning the front of the house, analyzing something I couldn't yet name. I wiped my palms on my jeans and opened the door before they had the chance to knock. "Dad, this is Trudy." "Trudy, my father, Forrest." She extended a hand, her smile wide but her eyes cold. "Mr. Dixon, Wesley talks about you all the time. This home is gorgeous. How long have you lived here?" 23 years, I replied. Built most of the additions myself. Her brows lifted with an expression that seemed rehearsed. "Really, that's impressive. Wesley mentioned you run several businesses." We stepped inside. I'd spent all afternoon cleaning, cooking my mother's pot roast recipe, Wesley's favorite. Trudy's heels clicked against the hardwood as she moved through the room, fingers tracing the leather sofa before picking up a framed photo from Wesley's college graduation. She held it at arm's length, not to admire the memory but to study the silver frame, tilting it to catch the light. "Beautiful craftsmanship," she murmured, placing it back carefully, too carefully, as if evaluating its worth. At dinner, Wesley was glowing. I hadn't seen him this lively in years, not since before his mother and I separated. He served the pot roast proudly, as though he'd made it himself. "So, Forrest," Trudy said, cutting her meat into perfect squares. 5 auto shops across Phoenix, that's incredible. Do you manage all of them personally?" "I've got managers now," I said. "I mostly oversee operations." Wesley chimed in, full of pride. "Dad built it from nothing. Started with one garage back in '89. "That's remarkable," Trudy replied smoothly. "And you're thinking about retiring soon?" The question landed like a dart. "Eventually," I said carefully. "Haven't set a date." She nodded, taking a delicate bite before continuing. "This layout's gorgeous. What's the square footage?" "About 2,800. "And property values here must be—" She stopped herself, laughing lightly. "Sorry, I work in marketing. I analyze everything, it's a habit." Wesley squeezed her hand affectionately. My son, 34, successful, intelligent, and utterly blind to what was right in front of him. I decided to test something. "Actually, I've been thinking of selling one of my investment properties in Scottsdale," I said casually. "Might be time to liquidate a few assets." Her fork froze mid-air, her eyes sharpening. "Really? What kind of property?" "A duplex. Bought it in 2010. Market's strong right now." "How much are you asking?" she asked instantly, too eagerly. "Not sure yet. Haven't listed it." She leaned forward. "I've got contacts in real estate. I could connect you with great agents. What price range are you aiming for?" I didn't answer, just smiled and changed the subject. I'd seen what I needed to see, the hunger behind her charm. During dessert, Wesley's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, wincing. "Work emergency. Belmont client. I'll take it outside." As he left, Trudy stood, gathering dishes. "Let me help clean up." In the kitchen, away from the windows, her demeanor flipped like a switch. The warmth drained from her face. Her tone became sharp, businesslike. "Wesley's a wonderful man, but he needs help getting established. I'm sure you understand that as his father." I kept my voice steady. "Getting started with what?" "Life, a real future. You know how expensive everything is these days." "Wesley's doing fine," I said. "Fine," she echoed, smiling faintly. "But fine isn't secure, is it?" I dried my hands, met her eyes. "What are you asking me for?" She laughed lightly. "I'm not asking for anything, Forrest. Just chatting. Families should support one another, don't you think?" Wesley re-entered before I could reply. Her warmth returned instantly, as if the last minute hadn't existed. They left an hour later. Wesley hugged me at the door, his embrace full of hope. "Thanks for tonight, Dad. She's amazing, isn't she?" "She's interesting," I said. He grinned. "I knew you'd like her. This means a lot to me." I watched their car disappear down the street, then turned back inside, suddenly weary. In the bathroom, a folded paper lay on the counter, a credit card statement. Must have slipped from her purse. I picked it up. My eyes froze on the balance. $1,850.73. Back in the living room, I sank onto the sofa, staring at the paper in my hand. My phone buzzed, Wesley texting, "Thanks again, Dad, I think she's the one." The one. I looked at the number again, $18,000 in debt. Her questions about my assets. Her subtle pressure. The house felt heavier now, stripped of memories, full of numbers and value assessments. I took a photo of the statement, the flash catching the bold digits. Then I sat in the dark, realizing what had changed. My son was in danger, and I was the only one who could see it. 3 days passed like a slow bleed. The credit card statement sat in my desk drawer, a silent weight. I'd practiced the talk in my head a dozen ways, calm, logical, emotional, but every version ended the same. Wesley choosing her over me. I finally called Tuesday morning. "Can you meet me at the Camelback shop?" "Need to talk." The pause said everything. "What about?" "Better in person. Around 2. "Fine." His voice was tight, defensive. I arrived early. The smell of oil and rubber filled the shop, usually comforting, but not today. Miguel was rotating tires nearby. I kept checking my watch, rehearsing lines that grew weaker each time. Wesley's truck pulled up just before 2. He walked in without smiling, arms crossed. "Thanks for coming," I began. "I wanted to talk about Trudy." "What about her?" His tone was already combative. "You've known her, what, 4 or 5 months? So, that's not long to be talking marriage. You proposed to Mom after 3. The truth stung. I shifted tactics. "She asks a lot about money, about the business. She's interested in my life. That includes my family." It felt like an evaluation, not curiosity. "She was being polite," he snapped. "Wesley, I'm just asking you to slow down." "No, you're asking me to doubt her." He was already pulling away from me. I reached for the drawer with her statement inside, but stopped. Showing it now would only harden his stance. "You've been alone since the divorce," he said quietly, bitterly. "Maybe you've forgotten what it's like when someone actually wants a future with you." The words hit hard. "That's not fair," I said softly. "Neither is this conversation. Trudy makes me happy. Why isn't that enough? Because happiness built on lies never lasts. You just can't stand that I'm happy without you." He turned, storming toward the door. "Wesley, wait. I'm done listening." Through the glass, I watched him drive off too fast, tires squealing as he turned the corner. I sat there, surrounded by the hum of compressors, the clatter of tools, Miguel's radio murmuring in Spanish, life going on as my son slipped further away. I knew I'd handled it wrong. I just didn't know how to make it right. The next day, while driving home from the Mesa location, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Forrest?" "It's Trudy." My stomach tightened. "What do you want?" Her tone was soft, sweet, almost apologetic. "Wesley told me about your disagreement. I feel awful. This is between me and my son." "Of course, but family matters to me. Wesley and I have been looking at houses, and I thought if you helped with the down payment, maybe 80 or 100,000, it would show Wesley that you support our future together." The audacity hit me like a slap of ice. $80,000 to $100,000, presented as proof of my support for their relationship. I took a long, measured breath before answering. "That's what you think, huh?" "It would mean so much to both of us," she said, her voice laced with quiet confidence, as if my agreement was already a certainty in her mind. "I'll think about it." I ended the call before she could respond. For 20 minutes I sat in that parking lot, watching shoppers come and go at the grocery store across the street, people with ordinary lives, debating dinner options, checking lists dealing with simple human problems. Mine had just taken a darker turn. Yet that conversation had crystallized something important. This wasn't simple greed, and it was calculated. She'd taken my disagreement with Wesley and weaponized it into leverage. A 6-figure proposition meant to manipulate reconciliation. That wasn't coincidence. It was design, thought out, experienced. I needed to find out exactly who I was dealing with. A business acquaintance had once mentioned a private investigator, Rita Chen, discreet, efficient, relentless. Her number was still in my contacts. I called before I could talk myself out of it. 2 days later, I was seated across from her at a coffee shop on 16th Street. Rita was smaller than I expected. Mid-40s, maybe. Streaks of grey cutting through black hair, eyes that caught everything. She'd brought a leather portfolio and a cup of tea she never touched. I slid a folder across the table. Credit card statement, notes from dinner, timeline of events, printed photos. I need someone investigated thoroughly. Who? She asked, not opening the folder yet. And why? My son's fiancée. I think she's after money. You think, she said quietly, or you know. I tapped the folder once. I know enough to be worried. I need the rest confirmed. Rita opened the file, eyes scanning quickly. She paused on the credit card balance, made a small sound that might have been recognition. This level of debt, tied to someone courting family wealth, it's a familiar pattern. Then she looked up. But Mr. Dixon, if your instincts are right, what I uncover might be worse than you're expecting. Are you prepared for that? I pulled out my checkbook, steady. That's exactly why I called you. My retainer is $3,500. That covers 2 weeks. Background checks, financials, social media, interviews. If it goes deeper, we'll discuss more. I wrote the check without hesitation, my hand firm. She slid it into her portfolio. I'll start tomorrow. Expect an initial report within a week. We shook hands. As I walked back to my truck, the weight of the decision settled on me. Not heavy with doubt, but with certainty. If Wesley wouldn't see the warning signs, I'd bring him proof he couldn't ignore. I'd spent 36 years building my business from the ground up, learning to read faces, to sense lies, to calculate risk. Those same instincts would now serve one purpose, protecting my son. The next 2 weeks crawled by like a slow leak. I checked my phone constantly, jumped at every email notification, listened for the shop door, waiting for news. Rita finally called on a Thursday afternoon. Need to meet. Now. She arrived with a leather messenger bag heavier than before. When she laid out its contents across my desk, photographs, bank statements, credit reports, timelines, I understood why. Mr. Dixon, she said, her tone level, what I found goes beyond the usual gold digging. I leaned forward. Show me. Rita spread the documents in neat order, movement surgical. 4 credit cards, all maxed. $47,000 in total debt. The number hit harder than expected. How's she staying afloat? She isn't, Rita replied. She's drowning, and your son is the life raft. She pointed at one statement. Cash advances, balance transfers, minimal payments for 18 straight months. I followed the pattern, recognizing expensive restaurants, designer labels, luxury apartment rent. This doesn't add up. Her rent is $2,400 a month, Rita said. Her verified income? $4,000. After rent, car payment, insurance, there's nothing left. It hasn't balanced in a year. Then how? Rita slid a set of photographs across the desk. Because there's someone else. The first picture showed Gertrude across from a man at an outdoor restaurant table, both leaning close over a document. The second, the same pair in an upscale bar, faces tense, serious. The third, outside an office building, the man gesturing animatedly while she nodded. Who is he? And I asked. Marcus Trent, 41, commercial real estate broker. They've met 3 times in 2 weeks. So I studied the photos. No touching, no affection, but the familiarity in their posture was unmistakable. Romantic? Rita shook her head. No, worse, it's business, strategic. Look how they sit, planning something. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed. Wesley. I met Rita's eyes, then answered. Dad, I've got news. His voice was alive with excitement I hadn't heard in months. I'm listening. We're engaged officially. Wedding's in August. The photos of Trudy with Marcus stared up at me from the desk. I walked to the window, watching Miguel install brake pads on a Tacoma below. Mechanical problems, simple problems. That's wonderful, son. Congratulations. I thought you'd be upset, he admitted. You're my son. Your happiness matters, I said softly. He talked about venues, guest lists, how thrilled Gertrude was. I congratulated him again, told him I loved him, then ended the call. When I turned, Rita had neatly stacked the papers again, giving me space. That accelerates the timeline, she said. 4 months. I nodded slowly. Keep digging. I want to know exactly who Marcus Trent is to her. Over the next week, Gertrude's pressure campaign intensified. Wesley dropped hints in phone calls, how other parents helped their kids start married life, how traditional it was to give financial support, how it would mean so much. He never demanded, just circled the subject closer each time. Then came the text, "Dad, can we talk?" "No arguments, just talk, of course." "Name the time and place," I replied. "Trudy wants to be there, that okay?" "If that's what you want. She's got ideas about our future." "I think you should hear them." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, "I'm listening." The next morning, I drove to Dominic's steakhouse, the spot Wesley had suggested. I parked, circled the building, checked the sightlines through every window. Then I sat in my truck, pulled the small recording device from the glove box and tested it. Arizona was a one-party consent state. Recording my own conversation was legal. My phone buzzed, Wesley again. "Tomorrow at noon. Thanks for doing this, Dad." "See you then," I typed back. I opened Rita's folder one more time, studying the photographs. Gertrude's smile, radiant and false beside Wesley. Her expression with markers, sharp and predatory, stripped of charm. Same woman, two faces. I closed the folder, started the engine. Tomorrow she'd think she had control. That evening I stood before the bathroom mirror, practicing my lines, calm but cautious, open yet reserved. Over and over, until the words sounded natural, until they hid the anger underneath. Rita called while I was making dinner. "I'm still digging into Marcus," she said. "His finances are clean, but every meeting with her follows one of his big commissions. Could be he's her next target or her partner." She paused. "Be careful tomorrow. If she's working with him, this is bigger than we thought." "I'll be careful," I promised, ending the call. Then I went back to my rehearsal. Because tomorrow at noon the performance of my life would begin, the act of a father pretending to surrender. I arrived at Dominic's 30 minutes early, requesting the corner booth I'd scouted. The acoustics carried conversation clearly without being intrusive, ideal for recording. I ordered water and waited, watching families and couples around me share uncomplicated meals. A father cut steak for his little girl. An elderly couple held hands, smiling softly. The recorder rested in my jacket pocket, already running. My phone sat on the table, appearing casually placed, though it was actually recording everything as backup. Wesley and Gertrude entered right at noon. I watched them walk toward me, his hand resting protectively on her back, her confident stride punctuated by the sharp rhythm of her heels on the hardwood. She wore a cream-colored blouse and carried an expensive-looking leather portfolio. I stood as they reached the table. Wesley's handshake was firm, hopeful. Gertrude leaned in, offering a cheek kiss I accepted politely. "Forrest, thank you so much for meeting with us." Her smile reached her eyes this time. She'd practiced too. "Family matters. I'm glad we're having this talk." Wesley slid into the booth beside her, his shoulders easing with relief. "This means a lot, Dad, really." I met his eyes, let him see warmth there. "You're my son. I want you to start off right." Gertrude seized the opening immediately. "That's exactly what we wanted to discuss, a solid foundation." We ordered. Casual talk filled the air, about the weather, the food, Wesley's new promotion. Then Gertrude opened the portfolio, and the performance truly began. She pushed several papers across the table. Property listings printed on premium paper, highlighted and annotated. "We've been looking at homes in Scottsdale. These are realistic for our budget and future." I examined the listings one by one, locations, square footage, prices. "These are in the 450 range." "Yes," she said smoothly. "We'd need around 100,000 for the down payment and closing costs." Her tone was factual, as though the deal were already halfway done. I kept my expression neutral, thoughtful. "That's quite a bit." "What's Wesley contributing?" He shifted slightly. "I've got about 15,000 saved." "Which is great," Gertrude cut in quickly. "But you know how expensive everything's gotten." I nodded, flipping through the listings again, studying photos of gleaming kitchens and polished master suites. "What's your timeline?" "We want to begin our marriage in our own home," she said with conviction. I've always dreamed of financial stability, the kind I never had. My hand froze halfway to my glass. There it was, not "we've dreamed," but "I've." Her mask slipped for just a second before she corrected herself. "I mean we want to build something lasting for our future children." Wesley added earnestly. A real foundation, Dad, like you gave me. I let the silence stretch, then leaned back, appearing contemplative. It's a significant decision. I'll need to run the numbers and talk to my advisor. Wait, of course, Gertrude said quickly, obvious relief flashing in her eyes. She'd mistaken my hesitation for progress. How soon do you think you'll know? Wesley glanced at her before replying. We're planning an August wedding. Ideally, we'd move in shortly after. That gives us time, I said. Let me go over this properly. I gathered the papers neatly, aligning them in a stack. Maybe we can look at some together in a few weeks. The hope that flickered across Wesley's face tightened my chest. He wanted peace, harmony. No idea I was quietly collecting evidence to expose the woman beside him. Gertrude wasn't finished. She pulled out more documents, furniture quotes, car options since hers was unreliable, even paint samples for potential rooms. Her preparation was astonishing and unnerving, every question anticipated, every answer rehearsed. We wrapped up lunch with polite promises to talk again. Wesley hugged me in the parking lot, holding on longer than usual. Thanks for listening, Dad, for really listening. I squeezed his shoulder. I always do. They drove off together. I watched their car disappear, then headed straight to Marcus Bailey's office. Bailey, a lean man in his 50s with eyes like scalpels, had handled legal work for my shops years ago. I'd called him yesterday, saying I needed advice on a family issue. Inside his office, I played portions of the recording. He listened in silence, jotting brief notes. When I finished, he set the pen down. She's fishing for a commitment without legal liability. Can I protect Wesley legally? If you choose to give money, structure it as a loan directly to him with paperwork. Shields you if the marriage collapses. I'm not giving them money, I said flatly. I'm collecting proof. Bailey studied me for a long beat. Then keep documenting. Calls, texts, receipts, everything. If this unfolds like I suspect, you'll need an airtight case. For what? For when Wesley realizes who she truly is, you'll need proof that you were protecting him, not sabotaging him. Documentation will be your defense. He was right. Wesley might resent me for exposing her, but he'd never forgive me if I stayed silent. Bailey laid out the legal terrain. Fraud laws, family financial abuse, consent to record statutes. When I left his office, I finally saw the battlefield clearly. In my truck, engine idling, I sat thinking when my phone rang. Rita Chen, I've uncovered something on Marcus Trent. You need to see it. I checked the time, the phoenix sunlight cutting through the garage slats. I'm on my way. On the passenger seat sat Gertrude's folder. I picked up a property listing, staring at the grinning stock couple in front of their dream home. I tossed it back and drove toward Rita's office, her words echoing in my head. I've always dreamed of financial stability. Just that single pronoun repeated with every mile. Whatever Rita had found, I was ready for it. Every clue brought me closer to protecting my son, whether he wanted it or not. Rita's latest file lay open on my desk an hour later. Photos of Gertrude and Marcus Trent from years back. Messages about finding the right opportunity. Shared financial trails showing joint ventures before Wesley even entered the picture. The link was undeniable. Not manipulation, operation. My phone rang again. Wesley, 3 weeks, Dad, 3 weeks and no answer. His voice had a sharpness I hadn't heard since our last fight. These choices take time, I said evenly. I'm being careful. Careful or controlling? Trudy says you're sabotaging us. His tone told me all I needed to know. 3 weeks of her influence had done its work. Wesley, please, just listen. No, I'm done with your paranoia. I switched to video call. His face appeared, jaw tight, eyes hard. The apartment behind him looked smaller, darker. I have proof, I said. Evidence she's lying, he glared. You hired someone to spy on her? You even hear yourself. I hired someone to protect you. From what? Being happy? From living a life you don't control? His voice rose to a shout, rage sharpened by manipulation. I spread the files in front of the camera. From being used. Please look at this. He turned away, refusing to see. I'm not looking at anything. You're obsessed. This is sick. She's 47,000 in debt, meeting a man named... The screen went black. He'd hung up. I sat staring at the blank phone, papers scattered across my desk. evidence that meant nothing without his willingness to see. 4 days passed in suffocating silence. Then his call came again, his tone calm, almost rehearsed. "Dad, we need to talk." "I'm here." "Trudy's pregnant. We're having a baby." The words hit like a precision strike. I steadied my voice. "That's significant news. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about our child." The timing was too perfect, too deliberate. But I had no proof, and accusing her of deception would only make me sound insane. "I understand. Do you? Because our baby deserves a grandfather who supports this family." The message beneath was unmistakable. Accept her or lose everything. That night, I made my decision. Not surrender, strategy. Sometimes you retreat to win later. 2 days later, standing in my Camelback shop amid the hum of compressors and wrenches, I called Wesley. "I've been thinking," I said evenly. His tone was wary. "Yeah? You're right. I've been too cautious, too controlling." Silence followed. "Really? A grandchild changes everything. After the wedding, we'll sit down and figure out how I can help." "Dad, thank you." "This changes everything." The relief in his voice pressed hard against my chest. When the call ended, I stood frozen in my office, the sounds of the shop faint in the background. Miguel leaned against the doorframe. "Boss, you all right?" "Fine, just family stuff." He nodded and stepped away. I picked up my phone and called Rita. "I need you to confirm something. The pregnancy. Can you verify if it's real?" "Medical files are confidential," she said, "but I know people in the system. I'll check for prenatal visits, OB care, something that leaves a record. Keep it quiet." While she started digging, the call I'd been dreading came through. "I've tracked her history," Rita said. 2 previous engagements." I leaned forward in my chair. "Tell me." "Tucson, 2019, dentist, age 42. Engaged 4 months, ended abruptly. Flagstaff, 2022. Contractor, owned property. 6-month engagement, same story." "Did you talk to them?" "Tried, both refused. Whatever happened, they don't want it reopened." I sank back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "That's enough. She's done this before. Wesley isn't her first, just her latest." "There's more," Rita continued. "I went through archived posts. Photos with the Flagstaff guy, fancy dinners, vacations, expensive clothes. Then poof, all gone. A clean wipe." "Exactly. When the engagement collapsed, she erased everything and moved to her next target. And now she's repeating the pattern. That evening I made a new folder and labeled it Evidence Complete Pattern. Inside went Rita's data, former fiancé, Marcus Trent links, financials, surveillance photos, arranged by date, the story writing itself in proof. My phone buzzed. "Wesley, Trudy and I picked August 15th for the wedding. Hope you'll be there, Dad." I stared at the message. August 15th, less than 3 months. Me, I'll be there. 2 days later, I met Rita at a coffee shop on 16th Street. She slid a bound folder across the table, professional cover, tabs organized like a case file. "This is everything," she said. "Financials, surveillance, Marcus Trent, prior engagements, communications." I flipped through. Bank statements showing mounting debt, photos of Trudy with Marcus, their body language unmistakable, old social posts of her with other men, each showing the same cycle. Credit cards, spending records. The math didn't lie. My phone buzzed again. "Wesley, we're finalizing details. It's really happening." I looked at Rita. "I'll be there," I said softly. "And so will this." I closed the folder and rested my hand on it. The weight of truth, the burden of a father's duty. As I stood to go, Rita stopped me. "Once you do this, you can't undo it. Wesley might hate you for it." "If I don't," I said, "I'll lose him forever, to her." I took the folder and stepped into the Phoenix sun. The heat pressed down, the evidence heavy in my hand, but my stride never faltered. 3 months to prepare for the hardest confrontation of my life. Marcus Bailey's office sat on the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown. I rode the elevator up, briefcase in hand, the folder inside like a verdict waiting to be read. Bailey greeted me, noticed my expression, offered coffee. I declined. We sat across from one another, his desk a barrier between us. I placed the briefcase down, opened it, slid the folder forward. "I need this reviewed for legality." Every piece verified as admissible. Bailey pulled it closer, opened it, and began reading. An hour passed. He went through each page meticulously, glasses low on his nose, marking notes, occasionally glancing up. Where did your PI get these financials? Licensed databases, public access. Surveillance photos are all from open spaces, restaurants. No trespassing, no privacy breaches. He nodded. And the recordings? I was part of every conversation. Arizona's one-party consent law. Finally, he set his pen down. Then you're covered. All of this can hold in court. I don't plan court, I said. I plan to present it at the wedding. During the toasts, Bailey removed his glasses. That's nuclear. You realize what that'll do. He won't believe me otherwise. It has to be public so she can't twist it. He'll be humiliated. For a day, I said. If I stay silent, he'll be destroyed for years. Bailey leaned back. I'll document this meeting. When things erupt, you'll want proof you acted with legal counsel. Over the next several weeks, I refined my presentation. Late nights in the dark glow of my office. Scanning documents, building slides, writing notes. Each section a chapter. Financial deceit, the Marcus Trent link, the pattern of lies, the fabricated pregnancy. Mid-July, Rita called. The pregnancy fake. No appointments, no medical trail, nothing. You can confirm that. My contact checked. No record under her name or SSN. Perfect. That's the final piece. Are you ready for this, Mr. Dixon? I saved another copy of my slideshow to a USB. I don't get to choose readiness. I just do it. Through Bailey, I ordered a full credit report on Trudy. When it arrived 3 weeks later, I sat in my truck flipping through it. The truth was worse than expected. 4 credit cards maxed out, unpaid loans, medical bills, a defaulted vehicle. Total debt, $54,000. Recent inquiries showed new credit applications, likely for the wedding. I photographed every page. Another backup. Late July, Wesley called. Dad, about the wedding, costs went up. Venue and catering overshot by 12 grand. I stood at the window staring out at the desert. I'll cover it. Really? Just like that? You're my son. Send the invoice. Thanks, Dad. Does this mean we're good? We'll always be good. That night I wrote the check, $12,000. Not the amount that hurt, but what it symbolized. I tore it out, sealed it for him. Investment in justice. Through June and July, he kept reaching out. Dinners, small visits, little attempts to reconnect. I accepted some, declined others, maintaining balance, warm enough to seem open, distant enough to brace for impact. Mid-July, we met at a casual Mexican spot we'd gone to for years. He talked about the wedding, the baby, the future. Trudy's thrilled you're coming, he said. I wouldn't miss it. I'm glad we moved past everything. We're family, son. That doesn't change. He smiled. Once the baby's here, everything will make sense. I looked at him. Smart, successful, 34, and blind to the truth. I'm sure it will, I said. The night before the wedding, I sat in my office. Laptop ready, USB in pocket. Print copies stacked in the briefcase. Triple redundancy. My phone lit up. Tomorrow's the big day. Glad you'll be there, Dad. Wouldn't miss it for anything. I laid out my suit. Dark gray, modest, commanding. The uniform of a man preparing to deliver justice. Before bed, I opened my drawer and took out an old photo. Wesley at 7, sitting in my first shop, grinning with a wrench too big for him. I brushed my thumb across the glass. I'm sorry it has to be this way, I whispered. But I'm your father. Protecting you is what I do. I slid the drawer shut, leaving the photo swallowed by shadow. My alarm was set for 6 sharp. The wedding began at 3 in the afternoon. 9 hours to prepare for the moment that could either rescue my son or shatter us permanently. I lay awake in the dark, eyes open, replaying the coming scene, standing with the microphone during the toasts, the crowd turning to face me, Wesley's expression as the truth surfaced, Gertrude's look when her scheme fell apart in front of everyone. My heartbeat was steady, deliberate, each thud counting down to revelation. By tomorrow, nothing would be the same. I stood in the hotel parking lot, staring up at the venue's entrance. Morning sunlight blazed white across the Arizona sky. The faint sound of music carried from the ceremony area, strings warming up, laughter drifting, guests arriving in waves of excitement. My fingers brushed my jacket pocket. The USB drive was still there. The briefcase in my hand felt heavier than physics could explain. My phone buzzed. Bailey, back right section. Ready when you are. I exhaled slowly, adjusted my tie and walked toward the doors. The ceremony was stunning, painfully so. An open-air setup framed by flowers and gold accents, a quartet playing something classical and flawless. Wesley stood at the altar in a tuxedo, his face shining with a joy I hadn't seen in years. Gertrude glided down the aisle, the perfect bride in a gown that easily cost $8,000 she didn't possess. Guests turned to capture it all on their phones. I sat in the third row, expression controlled, hands resting on my knees. My fingers pressed together so tightly the knuckles turned white. The officiant's voice carried through the courtyard. Vows, rings, practiced emotion. Then came the small detail I'd been waiting for. "We'll finalize the legal paperwork Monday at the courthouse," he said. The marriage wasn't official yet, just ceremony, no contract. Not yet. Afterward, guests moved to the patio for cocktails. I took position near the bar, briefcase beside me. The AV technician I'd arranged weeks earlier caught my eye and gave a small nod. Everything was wired, my presentation cued on the big screen inside the reception hall. I waited, sipping sparkling water, watching Gertrude glide through the crowd. She was flawless at the game, smiling graciously, accepting congratulations, posing for photos, embodying the image of a glowing bride. Then she turned to me, still smiling for the cameras. She leaned in close, her words low and sharp. "Old man, you'll buy us a house within a month. Otherwise, I walk away, and the only way you'll see your son is through court when I sue for child support." Then, smoothly lifting her voice for public politeness, she added, "Thank you for being here today. It means the world." I took one measured sip, set the glass down. "You're welcome," I said evenly. She walked off, content, disappearing back into her admirers. I let my jaw tighten for only a second. She'd just confirmed everything. Dinner came. I barely registered the taste. Toast time approached like the sunrise, inevitable. The best man went first, funny stories, nostalgia, safe laughter. The maid of honor followed with emotional praise, tears in her voice. Then the officiant cleared his throat. And now the father of the groom, Forrest Dixon. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked to the front with deliberate calm. Wesley clapped lightly, pride and affection in his eyes. I began the way tradition required. "Wesley has been the greatest joy of my life. Watching him grow from a boy who could barely lift a wrench to the man he is today. There's no greater privilege than being his father." The room responded warmly. Smiles, soft laughter. I saw Wesley's eyes glisten. "And that," I said, voice tightening, "is what makes what I'm about to do the hardest thing I've ever done." The mood shifted instantly. Confusion rippled across the tables. I paused, letting the silence deepen, then pressed the remote in my pocket. The screen behind me came alive. "But as a father, I cannot let this marriage begin with a lie." The hush was absolute, heavy as a dropped weight. "Gertrude Whitmore is not who she says she is. She isn't marrying my son out of love. This is an operation." Gasps. Gertrude stood, her face transforming from shock to fury. "What are you talking about?" "This is insane!" Click. The first slide appeared. Credit card statements, balances highlighted in red. $54,000 in debt across 6 accounts. Rent payments she couldn't afford on her real income. Click. Photos filled the screen. Gertrude and Marcus Trent, restaurant meetings, intimate body language, unmistakably conspiratorial. Click again. Regular meetings with Marcus Trent, a man she's known for years, discussing what she calls advantageous relationships. Another click, an audio waveform. I pressed play. Gertrude's voice filled the room. "Old man, you'll buy us a house within a month. Otherwise, I walk away and you'll only see your son through a courtroom when I sue for child support." The same words she'd whispered less than half an hour ago. I'd been recording the entire time. Gasps spread like electricity. Some guests stood, others stared, frozen. Next slide, medical records. The pregnancy she announced to secure my compliance? It doesn't exist. No doctor visits, no prenatal care, no pregnancy. Gertrude's voice rose, brittle with panic. "You had no right. This is a violation of privacy." I stayed composed, tone precise. "Every piece of this was obtained legally. Licensed investigator. Arizona is a one-party consent state for recordings. Final slides. 2 previous engagements to wealthy men, both broken. Screenshots from deleted social media. Photos, captions, and patterns repeating. Wesley finally spoke, voice breaking. "Dad, what is this?" I met his eyes. "This is me protecting you. This is me being your father." Gertrude turned to him, desperation now replacing the mask. "Don't listen to him. He's trying to ruin us." But Wesley was staring at the screen, evidence glowing clear and undeniable. His face drained of color. The room dissolved into chaos. Guests whispering, filming, leaving. I lowered the microphone, picked up my briefcase. Gertrude's shrill voice cut through the noise. "I'm calling the police. This is harassment. Stalking." She fumbled with her phone, dialing frantically. Across the room, Bailey caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. Through the tall windows, flashes of red and blue reflected on the afternoon sky. Approaching units. The moment before they entered, Wesley looked at me. Our eyes locked. Betrayal, confusion, hurt, and beneath it the start of understanding. He turned toward Gertrude, now crying and yelling into her phone, makeup streaking down her face. Then back to me, silent, steady, unmoving amid the storm. Wesley opened his mouth as if to speak. Then the first officer stepped through the doors. A patrol car rolled up the circular drive. Lights flashing but sirens muted. 2 officers stepped out, a young man and a seasoned woman. From outside they could already hear the raised voices. Bailey reached me just as they entered. I straightened my shoulders and waited. The officers took in the chaos. An upended reception. A furious bride, stunned guests, and one man standing calmly with a briefcase. The female officer approached Gertrude first. She immediately began pointing at me, words spilling out in rapid bursts. Illegal surveillance, stalking, invasion of privacy. The younger officer walked toward me. "Sir, your name?" "Forrest Dixon. This is my attorney, Marcus Bailey. What happened here?" "I presented evidence of fraud at my son's wedding. The bride deceived my family for financial gain." Bailey stepped slightly forward. "Everything was obtained lawfully. We have full documentation." The officer glanced toward his partner, still listening to Gertrude's accusations. "We're going to need to see that documentation." 20 minutes later, a detective arrived, badge reading Sarah Morrison. Experienced, sharp-eyed, she carried a tablet and the calm authority of someone who'd seen worse. "I'm Detective Sarah Morrison." "Who made the call?" Gertrude's voice cut across the room. "I did. He's been stalking me." "Spying, this is harassment." Morrison's gaze swept the chaos, composed and precise. "Ma'am, I'll take your statement." "Sir," she looked at me, "you're the groom's father." "Yes, and I have proof of attempted fraud." "All right," she said. "Let's start from the top. Everyone involved in the conference room now." Her tone moved people like a command. Bailey and I followed her and the male officer into one room. Gertrude and the female officer went to another. Inside, Morrison motioned for us to sit. I placed the briefcase on the table, opened it, and slid out the organized folders. "You hired this investigator, Rita Chen." "Yes, February, $350 an hour, standard rate." "She's licensed in Arizona?" Bailey handed over a printed sheet. "Fully licensed and bonded. All surveillance was in public places. No trespassing, no wiretaps." Morrison scrolled through her tablet, placing several verification calls about Rita's background. She examined documents with precision. Credit histories, surveillance stills, time-stamped location logs, and these very recordings. I'd been present for every conversation. Arizona law allows single-party consent. Correct. Morrison continued through the pages, pausing at intervals to read thoroughly. She jotted notes on her tablet, photographing certain sheets as she went. After 40 minutes of review, she shut the folder she'd been studying and rose with purpose. "Excuse me." She left our conference room and crossed into the adjacent one where Gertrude was being questioned, carrying a few key files. Through the door left slightly ajar, I could hear the tone of the interview change. "Ms. Whitmore, did you tell Wesley Dixon and his father that you were pregnant?" "That's private medical information. These medical records indicate no pregnancy, no doctor visits, no prenatal appointments. He had no right to access my records. These aren't your records. They're confirmation that no such files exist under your name at any major Phoenix hospital or clinic." A silence. I might have been mistaken about the pregnancy. Did you solicit money from Forrest Dixon under that claim?" The questioning went on, but Morrison quietly closed the door. Bailey leaned closer to me. "She's sharp." She spotted the fraud angle instantly. We waited another hour. The air in the conference room felt dense, despite the hum of the air conditioning. Beyond the glass, hotel staff in the reception hall were already tearing down decorations, the remnants of a celebration being erased. When Morrison finally returned, she sat across from us, tablet clasped between her hands. "Mr. Dixon, you're free to go. I'll be initiating an investigation into Ms. Whitmore's conduct, specifically the false pregnancy claim used to obtain money. That may constitute fraud. I'll need formal statements from you and your son soon." I nodded, began gathering files into my briefcase. Bailey shook her hand with quiet professionalism. "Thank you, Detective." We stepped out into the hall. The reception area was nearly deserted now, hotel staff clearing tables, flower arrangements left like forgotten monuments. Wesley sat alone at the head table, still wearing his tuxedo. Near the entrance, Gertrude was speaking in low, defeated tones to a female patrol officer. I walked toward my son. Wesley looked up as I approached. The space between us somehow enormous, though only a few feet separated us. I stopped at a respectful distance, waiting to see if he wanted closeness or solitude. His expression was unreadable. Behind us, workers dismantled the head table. The projector screen that had once displayed the evidence stood blank. The celebration that should have been here was long gone. I gripped my briefcase, months of work enclosed in leather and paper. Finally, Wesley spoke, his voice stripped raw. "I need time to think. To make sense of all this, take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." He stood, slowly removed his boutonniere, setting it down on the table, a small, quiet act of rejection. He began walking toward the exit, then paused without turning. "Thank you for, I don't know, for something," he said softly. Then he was gone, leaving me amid the wreckage of a wedding that never came to be. Across the hall, Gertrude's voice flared again. "This isn't over." "I'll sue." The officer murmured something I couldn't catch, and her voice fell silent. I lingered there for a long moment, briefcase in hand, surrounded by aftermath. Then I walked out into the Phoenix night, where the heat had finally dipped below 100, and drove home through streets I'd traveled for 36 years, to a house that somehow felt lighter, despite everything. 2 days later, the phone rang. Bailey's voice carried professional satisfaction. "Gertrude's been trying to hire an attorney to sue you for defamation and emotional distress. She's contacted 7 firms. Every one of them declined after reviewing your documentation." I stood at my kitchen window, my coffee growing cold on the counter. "What did they tell her?" Most were polite. One was blunt, told her she should worry about criminal charges, not lawsuits. And Marcus Trent's public statement. He's distancing himself fast. I walked to my office window, looking out at the property I'd built, tangible proof of decades of honest work. The difference between earned success and attempted theft couldn't have been clearer. "Rats leaving a sinking ship," I said. Over the next several days, Gertrude's finances unraveled completely. Bailey kept me updated. Credit card companies filing suits, her landlord moving for eviction. By August 20th, her apartment was gone, her credit destroyed. Her social circle vanished. The wedding footage had spread online. Guests had filmed everything. Her reputation was in ruins. On August 27th, I was under a car in the shop when my phone buzzed. I slid out, wiped my hands on a rag, and answered. "Mr. Dixon, it's Detective Morrison. We located a previous victim." Her tone was calm, deliberate. "A dentist from Tucson, 2019. Same method, fake pregnancy, financial demands. He paid her $15,000 to disappear quietly." I froze there in the garage bay, wrench still in hand. "He's agreed to testify. His statement's already filed. Fraud charges look very strong now." That evening I sat in my living room, reflecting on everything that had transpired. 6 months from meeting Gertrude to this. 6 months of planning, patience, and endurance. The doorbell rang. Wesley stood there, holding a 6-pack of beer, dressed in worn work clothes, looking drained. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. "Always." He set the beer on the counter, an offering of peace. "I don't want to talk about it yet. Can I help at the shop like before? I've got a transmission that needs attention. Could use another pair of hands." His nod was small but full of meaning. "Thanks, Dad." For the next 2 days, we worked together, changing oil, rotating tires, diagnosing engines. The familiar rhythm returned. Mechanical problems had solutions. The routine helped him process. We didn't push conversation, just worked, passed tools, discussed small technical issues, slipped naturally back into old rhythms. During a break on the second day, sitting on overturned buckets in the shop bay, Wesley finally spoke. "Hand me the 3/4 socket." I passed it over. A few minutes of silence followed. Just the hum of the compressor, the soft clatter of tools, the distant murmur of the radio. "I saw all the signs," he said quietly. "I just didn't want to believe them. I kept working. Sometimes we see what we wish were true. You saw the truth eventually. I had distance. You had emotion. Those are two different lenses." More silence. Wesley tightened something beneath the hood, emerged with grease streaked down his forearms. "I'm embarrassed. Everyone watched me being played. Everyone saw you being a good man who trusted someone. That's not shameful. It feels shameful." I set my wrench aside, looked him in the eye. "In '95, I went into business with a partner who stole 40,000 from me. I trusted him completely. Felt like an idiot for months." Wesley glanced up, surprised. "You never told me that." "Because I learned something from it. Trust isn't stupidity. Breaking it is the wrongdoing, not giving it." He absorbed the words, nodded, and went back to work. By the end of that second day, something inside him had shifted. Not healed, not yet, but starting. When we locked up that evening, the sun was dipping low, long shadows crossing the asphalt. Wesley turned to me. "Dad, can we talk?" "Really talk? My place." "I'll make dinner." We drove separately to my house. Inside, as I boiled pasta and tossed a simple salad, he sat at the kitchen table, the same one where this all began months earlier when he'd first brought Gertrude home. We both felt the symmetry. I set down 2 plates and took a seat across from him. He looked up, about to speak, when my phone buzzed. "Text from Morrison. Formal charges being filed tomorrow. Thought you'd want to know." I showed Wesley. He read it, nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I need to say—" He stopped, gathered himself. The conversation we'd both postponed was finally about to happen. Wesley slid my phone back across the table. "Good," he repeated. "She deserves to face consequences." He drew a deep breath. "But Dad, I need to talk about you, about me, about all of it." I laid my fork down, gave him my full attention. Neither of us was truly hungry, but the act of sharing a meal made the space feel safe. "Thank you," he said, voice tight, "for not giving up on me when I didn't want to hear it." "You're my son," I said simply. Giving up was never an option. I ignored everything. I wanted to believe her so badly I wouldn't see the truth. That's human, not failure. His hands were clasped tightly, tension visible. "How did you stay calm when I was calling you paranoid, pushing you away?" "I wasn't always calm," I admitted. "But I knew if I reacted emotionally, you'd just dig in deeper. So I focused on proof you couldn't ignore." We talked for 2 hours. Wesley let out everything he'd been holding. Shame, gratitude, reflection. Gradually, the tension in his shoulders eased. By the end, he was leaning back in his chair, breathing easier. The next morning, Bailey called. "Formal charges filed today," she reported. "Attempted fraud, Class 4 felony. Filing false reports, Class 6. I sat in my shop office, jotting notes methodically. "Timeline?" "Arraignment in 2 weeks. Trial likely not until next year." "Will they need Wesley to testify?" "Eventually, yes, but not for months." "Good. He needs time to heal first." I closed my notebook. This chapter was nearing its end. In the days that followed, Wesley quietly erased Gertrude from his life, changed his locks, blocked her number, returned everything she'd left behind. Each move was measured, deliberate, echoing my own style. He sold the engagement ring to a jeweler, accepted less than its worth, just to be rid of it. On August 29th, Bailey arrived with a detailed expense summary. Total cost of the investigation, $15,400. Rita Chen's services, legal consults, document prep. "You're entitled to restitution," she said. $15,400, all documented. I ran my finger down the list, each entry a reminder of the steps I'd taken to protect my son. "She doesn't have it," I said. "She never will. You can still file judgment, garnish wages if she ever works again. What would that change? She's already facing charges. Her life's in pieces. It would make you whole financially." I pushed the paper back across the desk, a small act of closure. "I am whole. My son's safe. That's all that matters." August 30th evening. Wesley came by. We sat on the back terrace, the sun dipping low over Phoenix, air finally cooling after another brutal day. We each held a beer, sitting in comfortable silence. "I owe you an apology," he said at last, "for not trusting you. For everything I said." "You don't owe me anything," I told him. "You were in love. Love leaves us exposed. Still, you were right. I should have listened. Being a father means protecting your kid even when they don't want it." Wesley chuckled softly. "Next time I'll listen sooner. Next time bring me someone who loves you, not what you have. Deal, though it might be a while before I trust again. Take your time. The right person will be worth the wait." We sat quietly as the sky faded from orange to violet to deep blue. Stars appeared one by one. The terrace lights glowed faintly. Crickets filled the night. Wesley drained his beer, stood and turned to go. I walked him to the door. At the threshold, he stopped, reached out a hand. I took it. A firm handshake, then a brief, tight hug. When we stepped apart, we exchanged a silent understanding. He walked to his car, waved once before driving off. I watched until the taillights vanished down the street. Then I went back to the terrace, sat again beneath the stars, and allowed myself a small, quiet smile. The work was finished. My son was safe. Justice had been served. I gathered the 2 empty bottles, carried them inside, switched off the lights, and closed the door on that chapter of our lives. Outside, the terrace chairs sat empty under the night sky, peaceful still. No more evidence to collect, no more threats to counter. Just a calm August evening in Phoenix, and a family that had survived betrayal by standing together when it mattered most. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.